I'm speaking on my own behalf, that it's going to be a wonderful pleasure to work with John Horn as the mayor of City of Jackson. I served with him personally for 23 years in the Senate. I know Senator Kirby has about 30 years service with him. Those of us who represent the City of Jackson always met quite a few times during the a particular session to discuss issues that would help Jackson. And John always did everything he could to try to make sure that Jackson's needs were met. And he was a pleasure to work with, and I know he's going to be a pleasure to work with now as he runs the City of Jackson. The first thing I'd like to do, as this is a bit of an organizational meeting, is to let the committee members announce themselves and tell their areas that they represent and why they're on this task force. So I'll start with Senator Rhodes.
Can you hear? Okay. Yeah, I'm Brian Rhodes. I represent District 36, which covers the southern half of Rankin County and all of Smith County.
Good afternoon. I'm Andy Berry. I represent District 35, Simpson, Copiah, Jefferson Davidson, Lawrence County, and I have my business office is just down the hill right off High Street.
My name is David Blunt. I live in Jackson. I represent part of the City of Jackson as well as the cities of Byram and the town of Terry and South Hinds County, District 29.
I'm Walter Michelle. I grew up in Jackson. I've lived 55 years in Jackson. Our family real estate practice has been located in Jackson since 1927. I own real estate in Jackson, and my district starts at Lakeland Drive and goes all the way to County Line. And I also include Madison County in my Senate District 25.
I'm Solly Norwood, represent Jackson, parts of Byram, and one part of Clinton. And I've been living in Jackson all my adult life and been in the legislature for 12 years.
Dean Kirby, Rankin County District 30, and I've been here 34 years.
Hillman Fraser, Hinds County, District 27, and I've been here 75 years.
Thank you, Senator Fraser. Okay, well, it's my pleasure to welcome Mayor John Horn to be with us today. And Mayor, I know you've had a couple opportunities to speak. You've spoken to the House, and we're going to have a meeting with the House later in the year as well. But please don't take it for granted that what you've mentioned to the House that we may already know. So we'd love you to have your full allotment of time and tell us from date everything you can do. And then if we please allow us some time to ask you some questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. How much time?
What did you hear, about 45 minutes? I know you probably don't want that long, but 30 minutes. After about 25 minutes, we might start napping off anyway.
Well, we'll hope not to put you to sleep.
Thank you.
And I must say, Mr. Chairman, you've outdone yourself with your new office. It looks great in there.
Thank
My old
That was
office.
one of the benefits of your winning the race. I got a nicer office, and I got Senator Horn's office. Yeah, that's why.
Well, folks were pulling for me for mayor for maybe some of the wrong reasons, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Well, I first want to say how much I appreciate the Senate for this opportunity to discuss potential state-city collaborations in restoring and strengthening Jackson's infrastructure, its quality of life, and its general well-being. I want to commend Lieutenant Governor Holzman for forming this select committee. I appreciate the opportunity to come and express our thoughts about what's going on. I'm going to start my conversation by talking about water, wastewater. As most of you know, Jackson had a storm event that caused the failure of our water treatment facility, O.B. Curtis, about 3 years ago. And as a consequence of that, the federal government declared a federal disaster of that system. And the silver lining in that cloud was that EPA awarded the city $600 million. The city council and the mayor's office unanimously voted to turn that system over to the federal government. Judge Henry Wingate was put in charge, and Judge Wingate subsequently hired Ted Henifin as the interim third-party manager, and Mr. Henifin established Jackson Water as the operator of the wastewater system, and then eventually about a year later, the wastewater system. Both of those systems were under consent decrees with EPA. And I would like to publicly commend Mr. Hennepin for the great work he did on getting our our water treatment facility back online and operating over the past 3 years. Since that time, we've not had a citywide boil water notice. We've had a couple of outages here and there, but nothing citywide like we were getting used to having before the takeover. Fast forward to 3 years later, you might recall that the $600 million that was provided to the city and to Jackson Water came in 2 tranches, a $450 million capital fund, mostly for installation of the transmission lines that many of which need to be replaced in the city, and $150 million in operations and maintenance. At this date, we are out of operations and maintenance money. The $150 million has been spent down paying contractors, paying operations, the administration of the water and wastewater system. And so we are in a position where the O&M money has been exhausted. It literally takes an act of Congress to move money from one pot to the other. And that's why, as mayor of the city, I have joined in separate visits Jackson Water and to advocate to our members of our congressional delegation the transfer of $54 million from the capital fund over to the O&M fund. Right now, Jackson Water tells us that they have about $31 million in debt, and that's owed to the subcontractors. They also are struggling to meet payroll. They're not able to meet the debt service that they absorbed when they took over the Jackson Water system, which amounts to about $148 million. And so we have been advocating on behalf of Jackson Water, along with Jackson Water, moving $54 million over to the operations and maintenance fund. We have also, as a matter of record, the city has taken it upon itself to meet the next bond payment, which was going to be due December 1st. That was $5.1 million. And the city was able to creatively cobble together monies from its general fund budget. And we made that debt service payment well in advance because the city had backstopped the Series 2013 debt by guaranteeing its sales tax revenue as a means of guaranteeing the debt. And that request was made by Assured Guaranty, which is the guarantor of these bonds. So rather than wait and have an uncertainty about the debt payments and uncertainty about whether our sales tax would start to be diverted, and that would begin November 1st, we decided to, as I say, creatively find the money to meet that debt payment. We are currently in the process of looking at a refi on the existing debt since interest rates have gone down to be able to get some relief on our debt service for the next couple of years, if at all possible. The issue is that Jackson Water does not have enough revenue coming in to support the water and wastewater system. The system is currently operating generally around 70% collections. So there's a 30% gap in the folks who are getting water and the folks who are paying for water. We have about 30% of the customer base that are not paying. There's amongst that about 4,000 stranded ratepayers who are customers of Jackson Water, but they're not getting a bill and they don't, many of them are not paying their water bill. You've heard recently, I'm sure in the last couple of weeks, that many of those citizens are now having cutoffs done by Jackson Water to get their attention and to try to bring them to the table to sign up for their to pay their bills. So we've got a 30% non-collection rate, and I'm told it's going to be several years before we're going to be able to have that system sustain itself. Jackson Advocate has Mr. Henderson, the director, has advocated a rate increase, and if folks are familiar, we had a rate increase a little bit over a year and a half ago. Citizens are resistant to another rate increase that soon. The federal judge has not deemed it appropriate to do a rate increase at that time. He's wanting to find out about the Siemens settlement, as well as seeing how Jackson Water is going to raise its collection rate. As mayor of the city, I cannot in good conscience speak to a rate increase because my ratepayers and my citizens are saying that I'm paying my water bill on time. I'm being dutiful about it, and you want me to subsidize the deadbeats. And so in good conscience, I cannot support a rate increase at this time as well. But as I say, the debt of the water wastewater system was transferred to Jackson Water when the other transfers went over there. And so we have, even with the debt service being Jackson Water's responsibility, we came up with the $5.1 million to meet the debt payment. So Jackson Water requires some sort of sustainable revenue stream. And to maintain the progress in repairs and compliance and service delivery, we've got to figure something out. To my way of thinking, there are two potential solutions to that both involve the state of Mississippi. One is, as you know, we have a 1% sales tax that the citizens of Jackson were given permission by the legislature in 2011 to add an additional 1% sales tax on many of our sales items, all but food, I believe, and food and medicine. That fund generates just around $15 million a year. We could double that to a 2% sales tax, and that would generate, again, another $14–15 million. That's one solution. The downside of that is that the business community had a lot of heartburn when we imposed the first 1 cent sales tax. And I'm afraid that it will be an inhibiting factor if we were to impose another 1% sales tax that the citizens would have to vote for. Another option is that also, as you know, the state decided that it was going to provide a payment in lieu of taxes because there's a lot of state-owned property in the city. There are a lot of churches that don't pay taxes. There are a lot of governmental buildings at the local level that don't pay taxes. And there are a lot of educational institutions that don't pay taxes. So the state established the Capital Complex Improvement District, which was, it started with a graduated diversion of sales tax that would normally go to the state general fund. It started out at 2%, went to 4%, and then was capped at 6%. That generates somewhere in the neighborhood of $12 million. So another thought would be to go from 6 to 8% diversion, or 6 to 9% diversion, which would generate $4 or $5 million that could be then dedicated to sustaining the city's infrastructure, water and wastewater infrastructure. So that's a quick and dirty explanation of that issue. but it's an issue that will not go away anytime soon without some sort of action. And the only way that I can see us getting this enterprise of our water and wastewater system back on solid ground is that we're going to need the help of the state of Mississippi. The second issue I'd like to put before you has to deal with matching funds. We have I'm going to just give an overview. My administration has been able to identify approximately $125 million for street resurfacing, storm drains and ditches to be cleaned out and better maintained. About $10 million is coming from the 1 cent sales tax. Another $40 million is coming from our having issued a $40 million bond for infrastructure and using our internet sales tax, the modernization use tax, as a backstop to that $40 million in debt that we pushed out. Capital One bought the bonds, and we have a 15-year note that's going to cost us approximately $4 million a year. As I say, we've got about $12 million a year that we're earning from the modernization use tax. We have, so that's another $40 million that we're devoting to infrastructure, mostly street resurfacing, but again, a lot of storm drainage and ditch cleanout. Then there's another $75 million that we've identified. $46 million of that is coming from the Federal Highway Administration. It is for major resurfacing projects, Woodrow Wilson, Medgar Evers Boulevard, McDowell Road, and McDowell Road Extension. There are some other streets and traffic lights that are going to be improved as a part of that, but those are the main arteries that would be worked on. Alone, it will cost us approximately $30 million to redo Medgar Evers Boulevard. The issue with that, though, is that there is a $29 million match required to get to 46 for a total of $75 million. And what we would like to propose, and this actually was an idea that the Lieutenant Governor shared with me, and we think it's a great idea, is that, you know, that we were able to build the Westin Hotel, and we also built the garage in Fondren by offering, I think it's $20 million in each instance in bonds that were guaranteed by the county. Those have worked so well that we also did a $20 million bond for a parking garage for the Westin Hotel. And it was also contemplated that there would be about 300 apartments built on top of that garage across from the Westin. We're told that that project is not going forward, and we would like to see if we can repurpose that bond. We would not like to have the county being put on the hook for it, but if we could repurpose those bonds that have already been designated to help us with that match, to provide 20 million of the $29 million match that we need. That's point number two. The reason I mentioned that is that infrastructure is one of three priorities that we have established in the city. First is public safety, and we're right in the middle of seeking a new police chief and restructuring our police department and reimagining what public safety looks like in the city of Jackson. The second priority has been on blight elimination, and there's a serious need for us to look at blight elimination. We think that most of that, we could use some help from the state, but we think that we can get most of the help for that from the private sector. The third thing is infrastructure. And so our being able to identify this $125 million for street and pothole repair, resurfacing, as well as clearing out and better maintaining our drainage ditches is a good investment into our infrastructure. The third thing that I like to mention is that as part of our efforts to restore basic services to Jackson, we have founded and issued an MOU, a memorandum of understanding between the city and the county. So Hinds County and the city have agreed to work on mutually beneficial projects. We have pothole repairs, the first item that we have decided that we're going to work together on. We can provide the materials for pothole repair, but we don't have the manpower. Our Public Works Department, we just got the first director of Public Works in 3 years, and we're in the process of trying to rebuild that. But the county has the manpower, and so we're joining forces between the county and the city to repair potholes. And that MOU was followed by the city entering into an MOU with Mississippi Development Authority. We just signed that memorandum of understanding 2 weeks ago, where the Mississippi Development Authority has agreed to loan the city a special projects officer who will work with the city hand in hand on developing stronger strategies around economic development in the state and in the city. That partnership, we think, is going to be very beneficial to the city, and we're in the process of identifying what the city of Jackson needs in terms of state-backed incentives, whether it's tax credits, grant programs, low-interest loans, or what have you, to attract private investment back into our capital city, many areas of which have been marginalized and underdeveloped. And we think that partnership is going to yield some good ideas. In Mississippi Development Authority is putting together, helping us to identify what kinds of incentives we might need to offer for these marginalized communities. The other issue that we'd like to have some discussion, and I understand that Mr. Cornbrecht with DFA is going to be presenting some analysis of the prospect of the state moving more state agencies back into downtown. We have several investors who have put money on the table to acquire the Pinnacle Building, the Deposit Guarantee Building, and Regents Plaza. They're also looking at One Jackson Place and the Marriott Hotel. And Kumar Bhavanasi out of New Jersey has made those investments. And so we've got some Class A office space that is in need of tenants. And it's some of the best office accommodations in the state. And we think that we should finally listen to Senator Blunt and his efforts over the last couple of decades of trying to encourage the state to put more state agencies in downtown Jackson. We think that it will help with the return of vitality to the downtown area. By working hand in hand with Capitol Police and JPD and the Sheriff's Department, downtown is a safe place. It is just in need of more bodies down there during the day, and also and from a residential standpoint. But moving state agencies into some of these private sector office buildings in downtown, we think would be a great idea. And finally, we have a homelessness problem or an unhoused problem in the city of Jackson. It is most prevalent in downtown Jackson, but it exists in a lot of different areas. And I think that's why the legislature put forth two pieces of legislation. One to ban camping in various places and wanted to deal with panhandling. But Jackson has increasingly become the receiving locality for unhoused individuals from other communities around Mississippi. Folks will give people a one-way bus ticket or a one-way ride to Jackson, let them out in downtown or wherever, and then their problem becomes our problem. I'd like to point out that the influx strains local shelters, outreach programs, and public safety systems. And so we would like to call for a statewide coordinated effort to deal with how we're going to help the unhoused. Many of them have mental health issues. They may suffer from addiction recovery. They have limited housing resources. So Jackson and other cities should not, we don't believe, bear this burden alone. We think that our State Department of Mental Health should step in with additional resources to help folks with those issues that I just enumerated. And we also think that there may be a role that the state can play in making sure that the unhoused find adequate housing, and we're able to preserve the economic vitality of our community with improved services such as wraparound services from employment assistance to behavioral health to support lasting recovery and stability. I just want to say how much we appreciate this opportunity to address you gentlemen. And we think that Jackson is on the right track. We have seen since our election a lot of enthusiasm in our community. Folks are ready to help Jackson. We've had great communication with the county. We've had great communication with members of state leadership. We will be meeting with the governor later on this afternoon. And we've had great interactions with the members of our congressional delegation. But most importantly, the citizens of Jackson, I think, are feeling a lot more energized and excited about the future of Jackson and the role that our city government can play in making sure that the basic services that every citizen should be entitled to are met. We've been working hard to restore trust and accountability to all those governmental partners as well as the average citizen who lives here. Thank you for your listening to me, and I'd be happy to respond to any questions you might have.
Hey, members of the committee, any questions? Dr. Kirby?
There we go. Almost said Senator, Mayor, excuse me. We're going to miss your leadership in the Senate, but I know it's welcome in the city of Jackson. Tell me your opinion on Capitol Police and the views of the public as far as Capitol Police and what we're doing there.
Well, the city of Jackson has 258 sworn officers. At last check, Capitol Police had 150. So we got 400 sworn officers between Capitol Police and JPD. I don't know the number of sheriff's deputies that are active, but between those two, about 400 sworn officers. I think people initially had some resistance to Capitol Police, but everything that I hear now is that Capitol Police is a major asset for the city. They are working well together between the Sheriff's Department and the Police Department and Capitol Police as well. They have great working relationship, and the whole notion is that we're all about public safety. So our current chief of police also happens to be the sheriff, and so there's a lot of mutual cooperation between the police and sheriff's department. But there's also tremendous cooperation between Capitol Police and those other law enforcement agencies. So I would say that the average citizen is happy to have Capitol Police in the city of Jackson.
Mr. Noyd.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayor Horn, toward parts of the homeless population is, and there's a problem that I know we have that, and it is, I've talked to the health department, I've talked to mental health, and that's the personal care homes not being regulated. If a person has a personal care home that has less than, I believe it's 6 individuals, they don't have to report to anybody. And the conversation is that too many individuals accept these individuals into the personal care home, but then they turn them out on the street. Subsequently, they go out into the city. And we tried to get some legislation, I guess, passed, but we didn't get the support, if you will. Is that something that you would have an interest in, be willing to support?
Yes, sir. I think that if you're operating a personal care home, you ought to be licensed. Right now, if you have 6 or fewer residents, then you're not licensed, and so there's a lot of room for abuse. But the bigger issue for the city has to deal with the closure or the minimizing of services, but mental health services in particular. When the medical center closed its facility, and I think St. Dominic also closed its facility, a lot of those folks were just turned out on the streets with no place to go. Likewise, there are residents, excuse me, there are former patients at these hospitals who might have come from Hollandale. And they get released from the hospital, but they can't get back to Hollandale. And so they wind up on the streets. And those are bigger issues to me than the personal care homes, but I would support any legislation that would regulate personal care homes.
Thanks.
Would you give us an update on some projects that the state has helped with funding? That would be the renovations at the planetarium, the renovations at Thalia Mara, and then would you give us an update on the convention center? Is it self-sustaining or is it needing city assistance still?
Yes, sir. So the total project cost, I think, of the planetarium is about $19 million. Most of it was raised in the private sector. It is going to create a renovated state-of-the-art planetarium, and is scheduled to be open somewhere between late March and early April of 2026. Thalia Mara, the state was kind enough to award $4.5 million for Thalia Mara and its restoration. 2022, we got 2 million, 23, we got 1.5, and 24, we got $1 million. And to date, we have been able to replace the chillers, replace the elevator, fix the escalators. We are in the process of removing asbestos, a small patch that's on the stage, that's above the stage. And once we get that done, we're going to install a fire curtain, which has been delivered. And then we're going to do a deep cleanse of Thalia Mara Hall. We're working on restoring the fountain, and we expect that Thalia Mara will be ready to go at the end of this year. And you mentioned convention center. So the convention center 4 years ago was running a $2.5 million deficit. And the city and Visit Jackson were having to sustain the convention center. The convention center severed its relationship with a private third-party manager and is using its own staff to manage the convention center. We've gone from a $2.5 million deficit to a deficit of somewhere in the neighborhood of $55,000. And that was done using convention center staff. And we were able to keep the same level of bookings in the convention center. And that management has paid off. And so the convention center is almost in the black now, about 55,000 in the red, which is a long way from 2.5 million. That worked out so well that the city has encouraged and has executed a memorandum of agreement between the convention center staff and Visit Jackson to now operate Thalia Mara Hall. Visit Jackson is handling the marketing and the convention center is handling the daily operations. And we think that's going well. We already have at least 9 bookings for the convention, for Thalia Mara Hall, starting in this January. Young Jeezy is the first act that's coming down. Now, I don't know who Young Jeezy is, but they tell me he's pretty famous and that he's going to be the one to reopen Thalia Mara.
Thank you. We have Ricky Thickpen coming a little later today to give us an update on all that. I know you've made great progress on getting help from within.
Well, our Visit Jackson was named the Destination Marketing Organization of the Year by the Mississippi Tourism Association about 4 weeks ago at their annual meeting, and they won more awards than any other destination marketing organization. So we're real proud of the leadership that Dr. Thickpen has provided.
Any questions? Okay, that's Roy.
Regarding the repurposing of monies that that the city has. Now, that was some time ago, there was an article, I believe it was, regarding some of the money that you repurpose to do something with the convention center's parking lot.
No, sir. Convention center parking lot?
Right.
No, sir. I've not been involved with that. We had gotten some money in the CapEx budget. As we call it loosely, the Christmas tree bill. But the governor line item vetoed that money. Now, what we are doing is we are resurfacing the parking lot across from the convention center within, I think it's supposed to start in the middle of this week. We have a national folk festival that is coming to Jackson November 7th, 8th, and 9th. We beat out 42 other communities to win the right to host that event. It called for raising $1.5 million. When I came in the office the day I was sworn in, we had $300,000 accounted for. We've been able to raise a total of $1.4 million so that we will be able to do a good job of hosting that folk festival, and it's the first of 3 years. So we're redoing the parking lot. We want Jackson to look as good as it can possibly look. So we're redoing that parking lot. Today we started paving Pascagoula Street. We will do Pearl. We'll make some improvements on the Mint, and we'll try to do as many cross streets as we can that go north-south. But most of the streets that we're doing are east-west. And we're also doing the stretch of State Street from Tom Bigby to Capitol Street because the main stage for that festival is going to be right in front of the Old Capitol Museum. So we want Jackson to look better, to look the part of a locale for a national festival like this. On the 18th, we had several hundred people to come to help clean up the gateways into downtown, Pearl, Pascagoula, Fortification High, and Woodrow Wilson, and as well as West Capitol Street. That has spurred a lot of other cleanup, and that's a partnership with the governor's office, with CCID, with Great City Foundation, and with Locke Ward, who is like a vigilante blight eliminator. He's taken upon himself to go out and help keep areas clean and well maintained. When the governor and I first talked after we won the runoff, he called and said, "Look, I want to help the city of Jackson." I've been watching your race. You're doing a good job. I think you're gonna get to the finish line. I want to help Jackson. And when we met, the first thing he said is, I think we need to do a better job of our gateways into downtown because it represents the front door to the state of Mississippi. So that's what that conversation is what started us on this path. And I can only see greater improvements of that going down the road. The Department of Transportation has gone from 5 cuts to 8 cuts a year. And if you've been driving around the city, you know that we were able to get them to redo and to repave Interstate 220. So that looks good. And it's all, on the basis of collaboration.
Well, I mean, the reason I ask about the convention center parking lot, I mean, regards to where it's coming from, I just think it is something that is needed and would be appreciated, and we just want to commend you for that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Last question from Senator Berry.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I understand this isn't under your purview with Jackson Water. But I think I read it in the media and you mentioned it earlier that those that aren't paying their bills are not being cut off. Is that correct?
No, sir, they are being
Okay,
cut off.
all right. That's,
Yes.
I thought I heard different, so I want to make sure I clarify that.
Now, you hear a lot of different stories, Senator Barrett, on how this is going down. Some folks say that they have tried to reach out to Jackson Water and they're not successful. Folks say, we don't have an account for you. We can't take your payment. And so what's happening now is Jackson Water can read the meters and they know when they're looking at a stranded meter, and they send a notice to the resident. And if they don't respond, then they cut them off. And at that point, they have to get an account in order to get it restored.
Mayor Horn, thank you so much for being with us. We thank you for all your knowledge. You obviously are drinking water from a fire hose and you're doing a great job of it because you seem to have a mastery of every subject we've asked you about today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you very much. The next subject we're going to discuss today. Are you leaving, David? You going to introduce? Dovetails off of something that Senator Horn said about a plethora of available office space in downtown Jackson. And I would like to yield to Senator Blunt to introduce our next speaker, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Kornbrecht from DFA. You're welcome to sit or stand, whichever you prefer. Okay, if you have a PowerPoint, we're glad you're here. Glenn, I don't know your current title. Deputy Executive Director of Department of Finance and Administration. You and I have worked together for, 14 or 15 years now. You've got to know every state building for every state agency, for every community college, for every IHL institution across the state. You're here, I think, today to talk to us about the state's property inventory and both state-owned buildings and also in buildings that are privately owned and leased by the state. We've tried for many years to try to look at that entire portfolio and run it more efficiently, run it like a business. And we believe there are opportunities there, but you can give us, I know, a very good overview of everything the state has in terms of real property. And then we can, the members may have questions they want to ask you after you finish with your presentation. We're very happy to have you here today. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for having me today. I have not lived in Jackson, but I have worked in Jackson for over 30 years now, 21 of that for the state, dealing with the state's buildings. I don't think I've visited every state building yet, several of them more than once. Sure feels like I've visited everyone. And just about everyone has had a leaking roof at one point or another. Just a little overview of some of the information about this state's footprint. A little bit about DFA first. DFA is one of the major property operators in Jackson for the state. We I missed a slide. Oh, that's right. Okay. Yeah, we've got three primary campuses. The largest by far is in Jackson. We've got 40 facilities totaling almost 3.5 million square feet. We also operate the surplus property out in Rankin County, and we have several other entities that we house, the Children's Museum, Sports Hall of Fame, our Craft Center, and a few others like that. This is just a graphic overview of the Capitol complex in Jackson. This map, truthfully, after some legislation should extend down Lakeland a little bit. You gave us the Workers' Comp Commission building a couple sessions ago, which is not on that map, but it's one of the buildings we now operate. The blue lines, incidentally, we referred to CCID earlier. Those were some of the preliminary projects that CCID took on. And as you see, there's a great correlation between the state property and the state invested roads. Many of the buildings that you see depicted were not actually initially constructed as office buildings. We have a great history of taking buildings that were not intended as office buildings and turning them into office buildings. I think we've got at least 2 hotels, a hospital, bus station, among other types of buildings, and funeral homes. So we're actively recreating these things. You know, I'm not going to say I'm an absolute building hugger, but I do like to get every last dime out of every facility that we have and make it useful. I often get asked, well, where are the state agencies located? How many of them are there? You know, how big are they? How much space do they have? So this is a lot of, I'm not going to bore you with reading each one, but on that chart, you'll see a lot of them are from in Jackson. The parentheses where it says CC, that means it's a Capitol complex operated building that they're in. And the square footages range from the largest single agency building, which would be Department of Transportation, all the way down to some rather small entities. And of the state agencies, the least properties are the following. Now, this is the next group of listings is for the boards and commissions. This is just purely straight state agencies. Of the state agencies, the largest 3 leases are the largest leases that we have, and 2 of them are in Jackson and 1 of them in Clinton. Now, the boards and commissions is a much more varied lot. A lot of small square footages and a lot more leased properties. Distilling that down, since we're not going to go through every last one of them, the overall amount of state buildings, state agency buildings that are owned, this is their primary offices. This is not dealing with museums, the Capitol building, hospitals, schools. This is just purely office buildings. There's about 2.8 million of them that are state owned and about 315,000 that are leased. For the, I'm sorry, got that backwards. 315 are owned that are housing the boards and commissions. The total amount leased is about 660,000. The cost of the lease space that we currently lease is about $9.6 million. The average cost per square foot is about $14, and that ranges from a low of $11.37 square foot for our cheapest rent to $22 per square foot. As Senator Blunt alluded to, we've been talking about this topic for some time now. I think Senator Blunt, you charged Millsaps with trying to run that report back in 2013. And the notion was that we aren't, as a state, we're not using our buildings very effectively. We've got far too few people in far too many buildings, and that there is a great potential in our state buildings to have more people in the same space and sharing space, which is a novel concept for state government, but you can share a conference room and a meeting room. We've done it and done it successfully, although not everyone's happy about it. In 2016, fresh off that study, we put some of that learning into practice, and we did a renovation of the Robert Clark Building. We renovated that building and how it took the corrections and MMRS from privately leased space into the state-owned space, saving $1 million in rent annually. In 2017, Peer had a follow-up report, I think, discussing shared services and the footprint building impacts of that, of what you can do in state buildings. And in 2017, primarily because the legislature gave DFA the operation of the Public Services Contract Review Board, which used to be an independent board, and said that's now going to be housed in DFA. You've got a few months to do it, get it done. And we did it. And we also at the same time increased our space efficiency. The next year, we updated our state leasing manual, doing what we could to tighten down the space standards for state agencies, as well as increasing the requirements for competition of leases. And in 2020, by the end of that time period, we have completed renovations in 3 of our key buildings. Sorry, by 2025, we completed the renovations. 2020, we did the study, which said our state agencies exceed standards by about 40% in most buildings. Just getting down to those standards would be a substantial savings. So as a result of our first wave of renovations, we've increased the capacity of state buildings by 265 occupants in the same buildings. These are buildings we're already owned, already paying the utilities, already cleaning, already providing pest control, et cetera. So these are pure savings in terms of removing 265 from potentially leased space. In the 2026 session recommendations study capital needs, we have a 5-year plan that will enable us to get an additional 400 people into the current space that we already own. Translating the number of people into square footage, that's roughly 100,000 square foot, which is cost avoidance of a 100,000 square foot building, or $1.75 to $2.5 million worth of rent annually. So this subject is close to my heart. There's a lot of ability to make some great advances, and at the same time that we're doing this, we've got a lot of deferred maintenance in our buildings. The facilities committees or the legislature that we travel with it see it day in, day out. We are not doing the major renovations in the buildings that we need to get the best use out of the buildings. This has to be done anyway. If you couple this with making energy efficiency improvements and space improvements, you basically are maximizing these buildings and getting a large return on investment. Some of the challenges and opportunities that we're facing. Lease rates are increasing. We have a lot of leases that were negotiated and in place prior to COVID. Lots of long-term leases that had a flat rate. We are no longer able to typically in a competitive situation get flat rate multi-year leases. Increases of 3% per year. Escalations in leases are becoming common. We also are seeing higher lease rates. What we used to lease an average of $15 a square foot is now 17.5 and rising. Some other challenges in terms of operating and maintaining our own buildings is the salaries for facility maintenance personnel are inadequate to recruit and retain acceptable staffing levels. This means that we can't keep the building up. We will lose it. We will have costly repairs later on. Utility increases, although they are slowing, are still a factor of life. And for the record, the state does pay water, and in fact, we pay $1.2 million in water bills each year. Opportunities. Some of the opportunities are, as these long-term leases expire and resolicited, they fall under our leasing manual space standards, meaning we are leaner and meaner as we acquire new leases. And another great opportunity is the co-location of agencies, boards, and commissions due to the shared office space, some of the concepts of shared back office. All these things have a space component which can contribute to some significant savings, especially on meeting rooms. We lease probably a dozen or 2 dozen large meeting rooms that are used once a month. And we can and do share when we're in DFA. We've got several of the boards, as on the earlier slide, several of the boards and commissions are housed in state buildings, and we co-locate those meeting rooms. We just redid the Robert E. Lee meeting room. It's a great state-of-the-art. We support the technology, and it's available to all the building occupants. I was also asked a little bit about the fairground. We've actually, over the last 10 years, the state has invested about $48 million in the fairgrounds. The single largest investment was the new trademark facility. That was about $30 million. But in addition to that, we've replaced bathrooms, replaced the seating in the Coliseum, repaired the equine center. We had an emergency project due to the condition of the pavement down there. $3 million on a parking lot seems like a lot, but that's just a fraction of the paving down there. That's a very large 100-acre site. The paving costs alone are insurmountable, and we had to get involved in this one because tort claims said we're an accident waiting to happen. So we got that done, but it's expensive, and there's many more projects like that down there. We have recently completed the acquisition of the Graymont properties authorized by the legislature. We've demolished 2 2/3 of the properties. The last one will be complete December. We are also currently involved in a campus security and traffic circulation pre-planning project. Although there are some different thoughts on what the ultimate fate of buildings on the fairgrounds are, I think there's consensus that it needs to be safe, it needs to be well lit, we need secure access and egress. And for the sake of event convenience, we don't need a bottleneck every time we have an event. We need to have logical, sane traffic in and out of the fairgrounds. And we have some great engineers working on that right now. And I think we'll have a good result on that. As to the future, we do need a comprehensive assessment of some of the buildings and infrastructure down there. Some of them, I believe, some of the barns down there essentially are at their end of their usable life and cannot be renovated. But we need some vision as far as what do we need to do, how much it will cost, and what is the condition of what we've got. That's all I prepared formally. I'm open for any question that you can throw at me.
Senator Blunt, would you explain your bill you worked on for many years? You were chairman of the Public Property Committee, and discuss that committee.
Sure, I'll be happy to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And again, I want to recognize Mr. Cornbreck and the work of DFA. When Lieutenant Governor Reeves named me chairman of that committee, we sat down and talked about this, and a lot of this is just due to the leadership of Glenn and DFA. I would say, taking a step back, I want to talk about why this is important and why we're talking about it here in the Jackson Committee. So if you're a legislator from any part of the state, you probably came here thinking that government could be more efficient, could run like a business, and that's what we've tried to do through this effort. I mean, the amount of money that Glenn has outlined that is saving all of our constituents money. Just think about how much the state owns in buildings, pays rent every year in buildings. Are we using that space wisely? Are we maximizing our rent dollars? The changes and the progress here has been really incredible, Glenn, and I want to thank you for that. And everybody, wherever they live in the state, is benefiting from that. The reason I think that this is in the Jackson Committee is because most state agencies are centered here in Jackson. And this is only more true today than when you and I sat down 14 years ago to talk about it. The price of real estate, and office space in particular, near this building is probably lower today than it was 14 years ago. And there's a lot of places around that you probably can't say that. In addition to that, I believe the water is in a better place than it was a few years ago, and the state's investment in the Capitol Police, as you heard the mayor say, has made downtown Jackson safer as a result, thanks to the good work of the Capitol Police. So the reason we're here is the state can save money. All of our taxpayers can save money. We can run the state government more efficiently and bring more people into downtown Jackson, near the Capitol where we work, closer and more conveniently located, to have a number of agencies all next to each other and share space and share conference rooms right here. If you're looking to provide office space in privately owned buildings, you want to lock in prices when they are low, and it's right now. So we have an opportunity. We passed this bill in the Senate this year, had a good meeting with Chairman Williams, who now chairs public property and is working really hard on that, and members of the House about it. The idea is, and Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong, most of these agencies that are in privately owned spaces, particularly if they're special fund agencies, have almost complete autonomy in choosing their location. And the bill, just to put it simply, would authorize DFA, and Glenn's got a lot to do. He may need a person, and we need to acknowledge that through the budget process. But we need a professional real estate property, I don't want to say a property manager, but someone who can manage the state's portfolio in the most efficient way possible and put together leases in state buildings to save the state money and bring more people downtown. And I think that's a win for Jackson. I think it's a win for the state. We also ought to explore whether or not in certain cases it might make sense to purchase a building. The mayor mentioned some buildings that have been purchased recently and for downtown for not a whole lot of money. And so we would want to empower somebody at DFA to do that. So could you go back in your presentation and just focus on what are the numbers regarding state leases of privately owned buildings in the Metro Jackson area?
So there's currently 668,000 total leases, and about 75% of them are in Jackson. So that means about 25% are not. But
Where is that the second?
it's a little bit of both. You have the state agencies, then the boards and commissions. The yellow numbers are the leases.
Okay. So in other words, on the top part of the metro area, you've got 30% of 533,000 square feet. And in the bottom number, you've got 20% of 115,000 square feet.
Right, correct.
Okay. And I believe, and Senator Williams just gave me these numbers this morning, I think that they're paying about $1.5 million in rent, if you add those up. And these are state agencies, not agencies that need to be in Brandon or need to be in Canton.
Correct.
These are agencies that serve a statewide constituency and not a county constituency.
Correct. I intentionally left out any regional office, district offices, academies, that kind of thing from these numbers.
What would DFA need to think about if they were entrusted with the responsibility of coordinating all these leases in terms of a master lease where you could put different agencies together and maybe, as you said, share a conference room, share a break room, save on internet costs, save on copier costs and utility costs, and presenting the legislature with objective information that we should consider when it makes sense to purchase a building what do you think you would need that you don't have now in order to carry out those responsibilities effectively?
Well, if this was a one-time or if this was a recurring, obviously.
If this was an ongoing responsibility of the department, because a lot of these agencies, particularly smaller agencies, don't have a person who's versed in real estate, who understands leases, who understands the market, and we would have somebody working on the state's behalf for all these agencies, general and special funds, to manage them efficiently. What do you think you would need that you don't have because you don't have this responsibility now?
I'd say it's primarily additional qualified personnel. We've really got one primary real estate person handling our lease oversight function, which again is a procurement function more than it is an evaluative. We're not saying what's good or bad. We're saying you followed the law on the procurement. That's what we currently do. So you'd need some subject matter expertise in the real estate area, probably 4 or 5 or more, plus some tech support, I'm sure, to administer such leases. Because administration of leases is another aspect. It's not just sign the lease and you're done. Obviously, not all landlords are proactive in management of their properties. And if that was a function, that would obviously also need some manpower to make sure that the leases, leased premises were adequate and being taken care of properly.
So in other words, you take the responsibility off of the agency personnel to somebody at DFA that says, look, I've got the lease here and you're responsible for changing the light fixtures and you're responsible for the carpet and you're responsible for the paint and and the person at the agency who really should be doing that now is no longer going to be doing that. The person at DFA would, because that person would have all the leases.
It's enforcement of the lease, and I think a lot of that is not really done by a lot of the agencies simply because they don't have the expertise to enforce the lease. We do have a much stronger lease than we used to have. It defines tenantability and condition a whole lot more than it used to, and compliance with things like ADA and fire code. But I don't think currently it gets validated as much.
Yeah.
Because I think if it was, you may see somewhat of an increase in rent based on people having to have facilities that are in better condition.
And is there anyone who looks at the numbers and can recommend whether or not in certain cases it may make sense for the state to purchase a building as opposed to lease a building? And how would you go about that evaluation?
There's a good bit of calculations. Obviously, the big factors are the acquisition cost, the cost to put that building into an efficient, effective state, and then the ongoing operation and maintenance costs. I think on the latter part, we have a fairly good repertoire in our existing buildings to know it's going to cost a certain amount per square foot every year to operate. It's going to cost a certain amount every year for major renovation and repairs. Those numbers are fairly straightforward. It's each particular building has a different history of what condition it's currently in, what will it sell for. And then you obviously would want to be at a rate less than what it would cost to rent privately.
And I think with the exception of the Department of Revenue agency, at least in Clinton, that most state agencies that are leasing space, you can move, and you have moved them prior to the termination date of that lease when space in a state-owned building becomes available.
Correct. That provision is in most of our leases. Anything shorter than a 10-year lease is going to have the ability to move into a state building if it's available. Some of the larger ones, as you mentioned, DHS and revenue have had a longer period because you can't get a private entity to renovate a building to suit if you don't give them at least a few years worth of commitment.
You're asking somebody to build out 150,000 square feet. They need to know that you're going to be there for a term.
Correct.
Well, thank you again. I mean, I would say this issue has come before this committee because it's always been my opinion that this is where the state's interest and the city's interest align. The state's interests are in effectively managing property and saving money. The city's interests are making downtown Jackson the state capital, the center of government business, which is good for the city. So hopefully we can continue to work on that. And thank you very much for coming this afternoon, Mr. Cornbreak.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Mr. Cornbreak. Now we look forward to hearing from Ricky Thigpen, President and CEO of Visit Jackson. Like a fine-tuned clock.
Good afternoon, Chairman Michelle, Vice Chairman Bluntz and Norwood, and other members of the committee and stakeholders. Thank you for the opportunity for inviting Visit Jackson to share with you how tourism is driving real progress, real possibilities for the city of Jackson. Before I begin, I'd like to introduce some of my major stakeholders that are in the building. Obviously, Mayor Horn is here with us today, but also I have my big bosses, the chairman of our board, Ms. Carol Berger, and Ms. Susan Gerard. I also have joining me members of the executive team at Visit Jackson. As you know, the Jackson Convention and Business Bureau is now doing business as Visit Jackson. Legislation passed initially in 1983. We're funded by a 1% tax on hotels and restaurants. Hence, the majority of our budgetary revenue comes from our visitors. We have a 10-member board of directors, and in 2026 legislative session, we'll be coming before you to request an extension of our enabling legislative authority. As a part of our 2026 legislative ask, we are beginning the process of vetting with our stakeholders an opportunity to increase our taxing authority from 1% and 1% to 1%, 1.5% on the restaurant side and 2% on the hotel side. Hence, this would be the first time the tax would have been increased since our founding in 1983. Our work in tourism is not just about attracting visitors. It is about telling Jackson's story, building pride in our city, and supporting the revitalization that makes Jackson a great place to live, work, and invest. Tourism is one of the most powerful economic engines in our capital city. Tourism is a tenet of economic development. In fact, in Jackson, we now regularly work with and monthly meet with our tourism partners, including our economic partners, which include the Jackson Chamber of Partnership, Downtown Jackson Partners, the Jackson Redevelopment Authority, the airport, and even the Hinds County Economic Development Authority. We meet monthly to partner and collaborate. We have also created a regional tourism committee called the Capital Area Tourism Association, meaning Jackson, Ridgeland, Vicksburg, Kenton, and Flowood work together to attract convention and meeting business to the capital region. Last year, millions of dollars were generated by visitors who came here to experience our culture, attend our events, and do business in Mississippi's capital city. Visit Jackson's 1% restaurant tax and 1% lodging tax generated $3.6 million in revenue for Visit Jackson, which is, of course, our operating budget, $3.6 million. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge the investment you provided over the last several years in CARES Act funding and American Rescue Plan funding. Hence, the need for us to look at increasing that tax just slightly, because at the end of 2026, that American Rescue Plan funding will cease and go away. And we don't want to lose the momentum we've gained over the last several years with that extra funding. If you look at our 2024 annual report on page 17, I'll talk a little bit about, in those packets, you have that document. Last year, that $3.6 million investment yielded the following: $69 million in direct traveler spend, $119 million in economic output. That's 43,000 jobs in Hinds County that are tourism related, and with about a $35 million tourism payroll. $20 million in total tax revenue for federal, state, and local taxes, and tourism offset local property taxes by $2.9 million. That spending supports local restaurants, hotels, attractions, and small businesses, the lifeblood of our community. And it translates directly into tax revenue that helps fund city services, infrastructure improvements, and public safety. But beyond the dollars, tourism brings energy and attention. It showcases the best of who we are. Every visitor that walks down Capitol Street, eats in our restaurants, tours our museums, becomes an ambassador for Jackson's revitalization story. Today, we are seeing strong signs of momentum. Visitor numbers and hotel occupancy have rebounded near, and in some cases, beyond pre-pandemic levels. Events like the Mississippi Blues Marathon, Jackson Indie Music Week, Mississippi State Fair are attracting regional and national audiences. Our cultural and civil rights tourism continues to grow as travelers seek meaningful, authentic experiences that tell Jackson's story. We are also seeing a rise in leisure travelers exploring food, arts, and music heritage. And with new hotels and meeting spaces under development in the Fondren neighborhood, we're really excited about what is to come. Jackson is becoming more competitive as a destination for conventions and meetings. However, you have in your packet some research that we conducted last year. Is the Destination Master Plan. And when you get a chance, I would encourage you to take a look at it. But the consultants that conducted that study said, among all the things that it recommended that Jackson do, the number one was, and I quote, and Jackson must rise to its occasion. We must note the significant deficiency in the need for a capital city convention center hotel property. We've invested amazing resources in our convention center, but we cannot realize and maximize its potential until we have an attached convention center hotel property. In fact, even international group travel is beginning to rebound in Jackson. Internationals are enamored with our music, our food, and again, our civil rights history. Looking forward, opportunities are tremendous. We're building on Jackson's identity as our destination brand, the City with Soul, a place where history, culture, and creativity all come together. Our new involvement as managers of Thalia Mara Hall creates a significant opportunity for Mississippi's premier performance arts center. Our partnership with the two Mississippi museums, Mississippi Children's Museum and Mississippi Museum of Art, all are cultural districts that give us a powerful foundation to grow heritage and arts tourism. Neighborhoods like Fondren, Bellhaven, and the Fair Street Historic District are emerging as centers of culture, cuisine, and community. When we connect these neighborhoods with improved walkability, i.e. our trail systems, public art, and small business investment, we don't just attract the visitors, we enhance the quality of life for residents. We also see major potential for film and creative tourism, leveraging Jackson's authentic locations and growing creative communities. And with the right support, we can expand our reach in sports and convention tourism, drawing regional tournaments and conferences that will fill hotels and restaurants year-round. Our goal, now that we have a new state flag at Visit Jackson, is to be the first Mississippi destination to host an NCAA tournament right here in the capital city. Of course, revitalization does not happen without investment. We know that continued progress requires improvements with infrastructure, public safety, and workforce development. Visitors experience a city through its streets, signage, and public spaces. So our investment in beautification, lighting, and transportation are essential to creating a positive first impression. In the near future, as Fair Street finally becomes reality, thank you to the Jackson Redevelopment Authority, you will see City with Soul co-branding, creating new opportunities for brand consistency and marketability. Visit Jackson is now providing support to our economic development partners when submitting bids for economic development projects, providing quality of life and marketing assets. Everything in economic development starts with a visit. If you build a place where people want to visit, then you build a place where people want to live. If you build a place where people want to live, then you build a place where people will want to work. And if you build a place where people work, you build a place where business has to occur and people want to invest. But again, economic development starts with a visit. We're all tackling perception problems in Jackson. However, Jackson is a welcoming city. Through Visit Jackson's marketing campaigns, we're shifting the narrative to highlighting our creativity, resilience, and progress. Our My City campaign strongly impacts the perception of locals who live, work, and play in Jackson so that they are encouraged and excited about where they live in the capital city. And as tourism industry grows, we must look at our hospitality workforce. We're working with local colleges and training programs to build a pipeline for young professionals ready to build their careers right here in Jackson. November 12th, Visit Jackson will sponsor its second annual Tourism and Culinary Workforce Fair, working with Hines Community College and the Jackson Public School Career Development Center Culinary Program. An exciting opportunity again to expose young people who are studying tourism, who are studying culinary arts, to not just get their education in the capital city, but to also live and work in the capital city. We also have a very innovative program called our Young Tourism Ambassadors. It is a citizenship program that we execute through Jackson Public Schools, and we've adopted the entire third grade population at Clausdale Elementary School. Again, exposing these young people to being a good citizen, speaking positive about the city in which they live. The state of Mississippi has been an invaluable partner as we do this work. Continued collaboration between Visit Jackson, the City of Jackson, Visit Mississippi, and the legislature is critical for sustaining this growth. We ask for your continued support of tourism and cultural investments, programs that will strengthen Jackson's appeal as a true tourism destination. Thalia Mara Hall is the only place in the United States, per the U.S. Congress, where the International Ballet Competition can be held. We need additional capital funding for upgrades, ensuring that the facility remains competitive in attracting regional and national touring shows. And just to let you know that while we just began that partnership, we will be executing a press conference on November 12th at 2:30, and we have approximately 100 dates already on hold for Thalia Mara Hall for 2026. Together, we can attract national events, grow small business opportunities, and show visitors the best of Mississippi's capital city. An example of some upcoming events. Just this week, some of my team came in a little late because we have 2 international conferences going on right now. All of our counterparts in the Convention and Visitors Bureau space from all over the world, about 300 of them will be convened in Jackson, Mississippi for this week. Michelin Restaurant Guide announcement in Greenville, South Carolina. I guess the worst kept secret that I can keep. We've been invited along with at least one of our chefs from Jackson, Mississippi to that announcement. We don't know what's going to happen, but we've never been invited to a Michelin chef's announcement. Exciting for Jackson and its restaurant community. On November 13th and 14th, we'll be hosting a legislative fam tour. Some of your colleagues in the House and Senate Tourism Committees and the local Hinds County delegation, inviting everyone to spend 2 days with the Visit Jackson to take a look at what's going on in the capital city, to see some of our amazing announcements, but also some challenges and some things that potentially the legislature could assist us with. Of course, I've mentioned the Thalia Mara Hall press conference on November 12th at 2:30. And of course, it's fall. In Jackson, we're not a football town. We're a town with a bunch of football. We have Millsaps, Belhaven, and Jackson State all contributing significant dollars to our economy during fall football. And then there's the National Folk Festival with an anticipated attendance of almost 50,000 in the first year. And we'll host that event for the next 3 consecutive years. And then it'll be Christmas time. And so we'll kick off holidays in the capital city with Capital City Lights, the first Friday in December. Of course, we partnered with organizations like Junior League and Mistletoe Marketplace. And the award-winning this year, 3rd annual Jackson Food and Wine Festival, March 20th through the 22nd. And the last thing that's happening just this week is the Placemaking and Trails Conference. And so again, there's so much happening in tourism. We can't name it all, but again, excited about that momentum, which propels us to be the destination that all the Mississippians can be proud of. Members of this committee, tourism is more than an industry. It's a statement of confidence for our city's future. When visitors choose Jackson, they see a community that is alive with music, rich with history, and full of promise. Every dollar spent helps fuel our economy. Every positive experience shared helps reshape our story of our city. And I respectfully request and suggest that we can continue to invest in that story. We can invest in those people, places, and experiences that make Jackson truly the city with soul. Thank you for your partnership and your continued commitment to revitalization of Mississippi's capital city. I can, at this time, answer any questions, take any questions from you.
I'll start. Mr. Thickman, thank you. Will you elaborate on Visit Jackson's involvement with marketing and management of Thalia Mara, the planetarium, and the convention center? What you're doing relative to that? Mayor Horn mentioned that your help has enabled them to reduce the deficit for the convention center. And
That is correct. So since when we built the convention center, we hired a national management firm, and it just wasn't the right fit. In fact, at some point, we were reaching deficits at the convention center of over $1.2 million on an annual basis. And I'm a member of that commission, and we bit the bullet about 2 years ago and brought all the management in-house, and we self-manage that facility. Last year, our deficit was $55,000. So we're doing a much better job ourselves. The people who work in that building, the people who work at Visit Jackson are Jacksonians. They have passion for the city and passion for that building. And we're going to share that same enthusiasm with Thalia Mar Hall. I'm going to ask,
And on that subject, there's a 1 cent sales tax for the convention center. Does 100% of that money go towards retiring the bonds, or does any of that go towards operations?
there is 100% of that goes to retiring the bonds. There's a 3% on hotel side and 1% on the restaurant side. And then there's a 75 cent per room night on for the hotel side. That 75% room night goes on operations, and everything else goes toward retiring the bond. And operations, I'm sorry.
Any other questions from members of the committee?
So just so you know, the convention center staff, they are professionals at managing the facility. They know everything from HVAC to carpet to water, cleaning the facility, and that's what they will continue to do. Visit Jackson is proficient in marketing, communications, branding, website development. And so we'll stay on that side of the house. And so we'll work collaboratively to make sure that we do what we all do best. And so we're excited about that. So you can see there's a list of some short-term projects and long-term projects, but all of these projects are underway at this time at Thalia Mar Hall. And again, we plan to have some, again, major announcements. In fact, some of our partners that have booked those legacy stakeholders that you might think of, Mississippi organizations that typically have events and activities in the building will be there with us on the 12th, but also some national shows that have booked will be there as well on the 12th.
Senator Norwood? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thigpen, in looking at the 10-year destination master plan, where Jackson, night visitors per capita was like 2.6, which was actually the lowest out of the 12. Could you just elaborate on what you think or know that contribute to that?
Can you repeat that question, please?
In the 10-year destination plan,
What page is that on?
58,
Okay.
the Jackson had overnight visitors per capita of 2.6 person, and it was the lowest out of the 12.
Yeah, we're number 10. That's our aspirational list. So what those consultants did, they identified some cities that we're doing better than, and some cities that have taken, that they have worked with before, to really say, what are some gold cities we need to look at as maybe some shining stars, some best practices in the industry. And so if you look at Memphis, Tallahassee, New Orleans, Huntsville, Baton Rouge, Little Rock, Montgomery, Birmingham, Chattanooga, they're all kind of above us when it comes to overnight visitors. And then Jackson is number 10 on that list. What that does is that gives us a runway to know what we need to do to go from being number 10. And really, that's still not, I'm not embarrassed by being number 10 in our competitive market segment. But that just gives us, yes, it's a goal for the staff at Visit Jackson, for my team, to look at maybe next year this time, after executing some of these strategies that were listed in these recommendations in this destination master plan, to maybe get up to, Birmingham is an example. That's a city that we could really become competitive with. But again, the biggest part of that strategy is, and my chief sales officer is with me, and she knows she's going to get me if I don't say this. We need more hotel rooms that are associated with our convention center. Right now, if she was to book a conference that needed, in fact, we have a meeting that international meeting I talked to you about now. We were able to get about 400 hotel rooms in downtown Jackson. What happens is, when we have a convention hotel, a convention that needs, say, 800 to 1,000 hotel rooms, we have to almost use the entire city, because some of the hotel properties we have listed in Jackson are not hotels that you and I would stay in. We have to, Christine Blackman's with me. She's our Chief Experience Officer. She has to charter motor coaches. We have to run motor coaches all over the city. And we're not in a posture in Visit Jackson to say we can't be successful. But we have to spend the money to get the conventions and to come to Jackson because they can't go to their rooms and walk across the skywalk like a lot of us do when we go to conferences and meetings. In Jackson, sometimes they have to get on the motor coach and ride from the Hilton on Canada Line Road to the convention center, or from some hotels that are down by the fairgrounds to get to the convention center. Obviously, the Hilton Garden Inn and the Westin are very, very short walks. But again, when we look at the hotel inventory in downtown Jackson, we're just talking about 400 hotel rooms. The rest of those rooms have to be transported from across the city.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Other questions? Okay, Mr. Big Pen, thank you very much. We look forward to that familiarization tour.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
I want to give you an update on some of the future meetings that we're going to have. Our next meeting will be November the 18th at 10 o'clock a.m. Senator Berry is going to elaborate a little bit on that fairgrounds issue that we heard from Glenn Cornbreck and look at some opportunities since the state does own that property. Also, many of us feel that Capitol Police has been a godsend for the areas that they are working in, but equally as important with that is our CCID court system. And so we want to hear from the court system. At one point, early in the process, before Capitol Police ramped up, they had 3,200 cases that the public defender was responsible for. And we're going to try to get an update on that. We're going to have a joint meeting with the House and that will be in December on that particular issue. We've already lined up the CCID clerk of the court for that. So is there any additional information needs to come before the committee at this time? Okay, we stand adjourned. Thank you very much for your time today.
Great meeting, Mr. Chair. Great meeting.